Let's go.
Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores brings you Garage Logic Podcast number 961, November 9th, 2022, the day after the election. And I forgot to write down the highs and lows.
You know what? I bet it was warm, and I bet it was cold.
We would have had a warm record, and then the cold one would have been a different year. It would have been colder.
And now, from the mayor's office, above the boathouse on the east shore of Spoon Lake, it's Garage Logic with Rookie on production, Chris Reavers, director of social media, John Hyde in the newsroom, and occasionally Kenny from the Krabby Coffee Shop. Here is your flashlight king, fireworks commissioner, and keeper of common sense, your mayor, Joe Soucheray.
Hey, the sun came up this morning. No, wait a minute.
BFD.
No, it didn't.
It didn't come up, actually.
Hey, the
Not at
papers
all.
were right there. And no, they were late again.
Oh, mine
I
were
feel
there.
safer. No, I don't. I don't think fraud will ever take place again.
Hold on. You're going to just get a bunch of these.
We don't know that.
A bunch.
Because we're drilling more, gas prices are... No,
We don't know that.
no, that's not the case. Boy, it was a shellacking, huh, fellas?
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota is now
weird
governed
night.
by the DFL in the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. Keith Ellison won. Julie Block. No Republican won a state office. Angie Craig beat Tyler Kistner. Betty McCollum's going back for her 150th year. Nothing's going to change here.
Oh, but in positive news, Mary Moriarty's going to be running things.
Mary Moriarty
Whatever the
won,
hell her name
Hennepin
is.
County attorney.
So we got that going
I
for
got a
us.
lot of emails from people who were all sharing similar sentiments. Sanibel Jim, bad morning. Red tide was always a blight whenever it turned up off the shores of Sanibel Island.
Yeah.
But today that red tide is a pink puddle and might be gone by noon. As I have said many times, these election results are not a fluke. I have a theory. I'll give you a great theory today.
I'll see.
Are not a fluke. They are the philosophical preference of most voters today. Socialism and its benefits to those who seek free money from the government is the desire. The Democrats could run Pinocchio from his basement and put out negative ads emphasizing free stuff, race, and class warfare, and it would win. Well, wait a minute. They did twice. The left will ruin Walker in a Georgia runoff if it gets that far. Our red wave is a pink puddle, and I can't really claim that I can believe that Herschel Walker would have been a good Senate candidate. Okay, I mean, I have to remain somewhat true to myself. The guy had been hit on the head way too often. Way too often. I bet he has CTE, something fierce. I'm not being facetious. We are doomed. When I started signing my emails back a few years ago with doomed, I was hoping otherwise. We are now officially doomed, Sanibel Jim. I will address the doom part here in a moment. This is from Scott from Inver Grove. As I noted in my email to you yesterday, I was very guarded about becoming optimistic about throwing out the Walls, Ellison, and Craig. As I awoke this morning, my tepid optimism turned to stark reality. You betcha the red wave did not happen in the People's Republic of Minnesota. Well, did anybody really think it would? As a majority of government handout takers and MAGA Democrats, make abortion great again, voted to not only continue the misery we are feeling, but intensifying it into the future. The statement, "it's over," should resonate ever so painfully today, as it is truly over. If we couldn't get these tyrants out of office, given the economy, inflation, crime, and all the other elements we are living with, it will never happen. It has been my belief that the left has patiently indoctrinated the younger generations to vote for them. I'll have more about that in a moment. Scott from Inver Grove, never afraid and pushing back. He's right. Rick Anderson, recently we went to Florida to be snowbirds for the first time. We are getting the full initiation as we await for Nicole to make her pass through the area we are residing. We have prepared our RV as best we can. We have a bug-out plan in place and a safer haven in place. When I got up this morning and finished checking the election results, I found myself wanting to research how to change my residency to Florida. The number of people who think Walz, Ellison, and Omar are the ones. Omar got the highest percentage of votes of any candidate in the country.
May I add something? Mm-hmm. You know, you had said this a few weeks ago. I didn't even realize she was running because she ran 0 ads.
She didn't have to.
Because she didn't have to.
Dealing with the coming hurricane is more attractive than another 4 years of the elected leadership in Minnesota. While it's hard to keep pushing back when the wall doesn't move, we have to keep pushing. Rick is from Forest Lake in Silver Springs, Florida. He's our cystic fibrosis guy.
Oh yeah, I remember Rick.
Yeah.
What was it? What was it in Florida?
Silver Springs.
Silver. I gotta look that up.
What's this one? Okay, I have a theory. There is no election fraud. I don't think there needs to be. I don't think there has been. And I'm being deadly serious. The voting can be explained thusly. The voting has been extended to before and to mail in and to what have you in order to encourage more people who have no idea what they're doing to vote. And I'm going to play off an emailer, Rick, who writes, Joy, I had a thought about what you were struggling with yesterday about what is going on with voting. In the past, the only people voting were informed people who knew who, what, where, and why they were voting. Today, there is a push from every angle for every single American to go out and vote. From celebrities to teachers to politicians, they are all pushing for everyone to vote. I believe that the left is aware of this, that if you send everyone out to vote, the majority of those voters who are uninformed will tend to vote left. That would be why the celebrities in schools are pushing this, as they would be considered left. I truly believe you have to be educated and well-informed to be a conservative, which is why the left can pounce on the unexpecting, uninformed voters to put more votes in their pile. Yeah. This could also be the reason it seems elections have become more difficult than they need to be. The need to make sure everyone has a chance to vote just opens up all of these extra variables that aren't needed. Early voting would not be needed if only the people who were truly motivated to vote wanted to vote. Hope this helps you grab hold of the thought you have been struggling with, Rick from Stacy. It does, Rick, and I appreciate it. And it leads me to some deep thoughts and theories.
Garage Logic Service Road of Life? Mm-hmm. Good.
The failed academy is so successful.
How successful is it?
That they've continued to dump out into the population morons who have no earthly idea what they're voting for. To make it, let's put it in different words, too many people are voting, which is entirely their right, and I'm not suggesting anything otherwise. Too many people are voting who have no horse in the race. Too many people are voting who have no invested stake.
They're checking a box, even though they have zero idea what that candidate stands for, and they have zero idea what the incumbent has been guilty of.
70% of the voters in Hennepin County voted for Tim Walz, okay? And 72% of the voters in Ramsey County voted for Tim Walz. Those are the two counties where you're most closest to the country's tallest buildings. I would love to see a statistical breakdown. I'm unaware that one exists. I would love to see a statistical breakdown of that 70% in Hennepin County and 72% in Ramsey County, their ages, if they're renters or homeowners, if they have children, if they pay property taxes. And again, I'm not advocating or suggesting anything. I'm merely suggesting that the products of the failed academy have been expertly trained. And I'd like to see in the statistical breakdown how many rely on public transportation, how many are bicyclists, because how else could you ignore what this country's been through the last 2 years.
Well, that's the part that was just baffling to me because I was up late watching election coverage, like I'm sure you guys were as well, because I was watching the Fox 9 coverage because they stayed pretty much local the whole time. And they called the race at about, 10:25 or so? The governor race.
Yeah, it was called early.
It was called early. And then you look at the overall map, and Walz basically won the 2 counties, and Jensen had zero chance to catch up.
No, and I don't think any of that's surprising.
No.
When you put all of these variables into place, you've got a failed academy. You've got younger and younger people who have no vested interest in basically the economy. They're not paying renters don't pay property taxes. You can't build these rental cubes fast enough.
But what freaking idiot that's lived through the last 2 years in this state went to a polling place and said, you know what? Hot damn. I want 2 more years of this.
Well, we don't know how many of the 70% in Hennepin County were even thinking that, nor do we know how many of the 72% in Ramsey County were thinking that. Because maybe what's happened in the last 2 years, although inflation would, maybe none of that affects them. They don't have cars. They don't pay property taxes. Their
kids weren't locked out of schools.
They're unaware of the food fraud.
Oh my God, you're right. Yep.
And if they are, it doesn't seem to have made an impact on them because the same people who were in place during the food fraud $250 million scandal are remaining in place. The exact same people, from the state auditor to the Secretary of State to the Attorney General to the governor. And I think when it comes to the governor, he appoints the head of the education department. He's culpable to a degree in the food fraud. The Attorney General is culpable. I guess the Secretary of State wouldn't necessarily be culpable. But my point is that the young people of the country, my God, in Philadelphia, and I'm not demeaning stroke victims. Stroke victims can recover and lead meaningful, perfectly normal lives. But you voted for a stroke victim in Philadelphia who can't even communicate. He is not healthy enough yet.
Do we absolve the Republican Party in all of this?
No, not at all. I'm not
here
there
in
yet.
Minnesota.
No.
Oh, you're not there.
I'm not there yet. I
wait
couldn't
then.
be more disappointed in the Republican Party, particularly in this state. Let me address it first nationally. If you don't stop paying attention to this psychopathic sociopath, Trump, you got no chance at all. And he's more trouble than he's worth. He didn't succeed anywhere.
It's more evident this morning than it ever has been.
And the best thing DeSantis can do is never mention Trump's name.
Yeah.
Ignore this psychopath. Explicitly ignore him because the Republicans do not have a chance in this country. There's too much stacked up against them, going back to the failed academy, that you can't pretend you have a Republican Party with this psychopathic sociopath pulling the strings. That was never the answer. And I know what you're saying. Oh, we had low gas prices. We had prosperity. Yeah, it was not sustainable with that sociopath in office. And the worst thing that could happen is that this moron runs because this Republican Party has no balls. Nationally, no balls whatsoever. None. None. And until they clean house and recreate a Republican Party with some meaningful conservative values and adhere to the Constitution, they got no chance. They got no chance. And let's bring it to the local. The Minnesota Republican Party is a joke.
Oh, no question.
They're not to be acknowledged for any achievements. They're not to be acknowledged for selecting good candidates. You can argue that Jim Schultz was a good candidate, but, a lot of voters said and did think about it and said, well, why would I vote for a guy for attorney general who's never spent a day in a courtroom?
But I think to combat that, though, anybody but Ellison would have been completely fine with me because Ellison's the biggest fraud in office in this state.
He really is.
And I thought Schultz was a really good candidate. He seemed not only believable, but trustworthy. And I really think that he would have done a great job combating crime in this state.
Jensen might be a nice guy and a great family doctor, but he was the wrong candidate.
We said this when he received the nomination the day after on this show.
And he got off. He got out of the gate so poorly with this abortion controversy that he never stood a chance.
He never recovered.
And one of the things the kids from the failed academy really learn early is that they should be pro-abortion. That's drummed into them in the failed academy, and so they never had a chance.
Nope.
They did not have a chance.
Not-
In Hennepin County, Walz got 404,000 votes, and Jensen got 100. My eyes are a little weak. 154,000. In Ramsey County, Walz got 114,000 votes, and Jensen got 36,000 votes.
It was a 4-to-1 ratio.
It's just
When I heard people talking about Jensen also, it wasn't just the abortion issue. They thought he made a lot of stupid comments about a lot of things.
he did.
Starting with COVID, whether you agree with him, don't
Yeah.
agree with him. A lot of people thought his opinion on it was stupid. The cat box thing was dumb as hell. The Holocaust thing was dumb as hell.
Joe
Yeah.
called
Matt
him out on
Burke.
that at the state
Matt-
fair.
Yeah.
Matt Burke, the one you called him out at the state fair about, barefoot and pregnant,
Right.
basically is what he said women should be. They made so many missteps. And the fact that the Republicans nominated those two, to me, I can't absolve them of anything
No,
here.
I can't take the Republican Party seriously in this state.
Or nationally.
And now, because I can't take them seriously, the DFL owns the House, the Senate, and the governor's office, and the Attorney General's office, and the Auditor's office, and the Secretary of State's office.
Joe, years ago, one of the things I learned, and most of my broadcasting know-how was learned on watching Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Sure.
And they had a word of the day. And I think
Yeah,
the word of
they
the day
did.
here in Garage Logic is,
Despondent.
that's what I am.
I'm not. There's
How?
because reality predisposes me to not be despondent. This is just the way it is. So I'm not going to make a life choice to be despondent the rest of my life. This is what we have.
I'm just saying today. How
Well,
can you
today-
not be despondent?
And if you think it doesn't go into the schools,
Of
listen to
course
this
it
note
does.
from Brian Matura. This is our future. Please see forwarded email. And this is a school update posted in the Roseville Area High School.
Oh, God.
And they took a, what do you call this? The straw polls.
This is where Coffee Matska made her speech, was
Right,
the Roseville Public Schools.
For governor, Walz Flanagan got 57% of the vote, and Jensen and Burke got 9% of the vote. For U.S. Representative District 4, Betty McCollum got 71% of the vote, and her Republican competitor, May Laura Zhang, got 14%.
How does that math work with Jensen and Walz?
Well, there's other candidates.
Oh. Okay.
Steve Simon got 71% of the votes for Secretary of State. Julie Blaha got 42%. Ryan Wilson, who I thought was a great candidate, got 8%. This is in the school.
We reelected.
Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, 72% of the vote. Jim Schultz, 11%. Write-in, 17%. I think it was Channel 5 that did a little bright. I call them brights, a little bright feel-good story yesterday. They had a reporter at a Minneapolis voting place, and inside were some students from Washburn High School working as election judges, which is great. They were three handsome young kids, and they got the day off school, and they were getting $15, $17 an hour or whatever,
go, yeah.
with which they hoped to buy Taylor Swift tickets. That was the deal.
They're going to need to work about 28 shifts.
And I never talk about kids on the show, at least under the age of 18. But the gal, it was a gal and two boys. The gal was 16. This is a little sweetheart. And she was asked, well, why do you like doing this? And her answer was, well, I'm learning who's running. Well, okay, you're 16, and I don't expect much of you when it comes to elections.
Sure.
But You mean you had to be at a polling place to know who's running?
Despondent.
Yeah.
The,
I don't read newspapers anymore, Joe.
No,
don't know if
people
you're
don't
aware of
read
that.
newspapers. They're not informed when they go to the polls. And I would love that statistical breakdown on how many of these urban voters really have a horse in the race. And by a horse in the race, I mean an economic vested interest in the success of this state. And I don't think there are many of them. I keep waiting for my call from Tim Bloom at EcoFun Motorsports. My scooter's lined up and ready to head out of the garage. He's going to take it back to Forest Lake, and for a fee, he's going to winterize it and tend the battery and change the fluids and store it for me all winter in a heated warehouse. 2 great EcoFun locations, the new store in Forest Lake, right on 97, immediately west of 35E. You can't miss it. And the store in Burnsville that opened this summer, right off the Garage Logic Service Road of Life near County Road 42 and 35W. Get one of those scooters that turn every urban errand into adventure. Motorcycles, scooters, youth recreational equipment, electric bikes. You buy a bike now, scooter now, motorcycle now. If they got the room, and I bet they do, you're going to get free winter storage
Nice.
at EcoFun Motorsports. Also, great service, apparel, helmets, and great people. We love EcoFun. They've been with us almost from day one of the Garage Logic podcast. It's EcoFunMotorsports.com. Black Friday is right there around the corner. People waking up early to fight large crowds to shop. To save $20 or $40 or maybe even $100, that's the reason? Here's another way you could spend your Black Friday. Sleep in. Visit thecanopygroup.com, request a quote on your home and auto insurance, and you avoid the long lines, you avoid the tug of war for merchandise. All you get out of it is better insurance coverage that'll save you an average of $800 annually. Then take your $800 savings and have your own Black Friday, maybe next Wednesday. This savings will continue each and every year as the Canopy Group's 40 professionals shop your coverage with their 16 companies, saving you money a year in and year out. Just think of the great gifts you can buy with $800. Go to thecanopygroup.com or call 800-967-3389 and get the best coverage for the best price in the comfort of your own home.
This guy wears many hats, just not indoors. Joe Soucheray.
It's the Heights. Oh, I like that.
May I make a suggestion? Can we have the Despondent Blues later today, John?
You have to sing it.
Oh, can I really?
Okay,
we'll
thank
have
you,
nothing
boys.
to go right there.
Thank you,
Right here.
boys.
We're done. We're done now.
Thank you, boys.
You know how you can treat yourself, Joe, knowing that the world is coming to an end, especially here in the great state of Minnesota? Get
good.
yourself some quality water.
Water's good. I like water.
Hofferman Water, they're the best, an independent water treatment dealer, and they offer sales, service, and rental, by the way, if you're interested in rental units, for Connecticut water treatment systems. I'm a customer. You should be too, because they're fantastic. Water softeners, iron, rust, and odor filtration systems, and drinking water systems. I'm a new subscriber to the drinking water system, and boy, does it give you quality water. Also, quality ice. Very underrated, Joe. Quality ice in your ice maker. And that's because a new system from Connecticut can do so many things that other softeners just simply cannot do. It's going to cut down on your salt usage, but it's going to protect your appliances. So bad water is going to affect every aspect of your home. You get a new system from Connecticut and Hofferman Water, your showers get so much better. So does your laundry and your drinking water. Get in touch with my friends at Hofferman Water, 952-894-4040. That's 952-894-4040. Or you can see everything that they have to offer on their website, which is HoffermanWater.com. Hofferman Water has been proudly serving the state of Minnesota for over 50 years. Tell them you heard about them here on the Garage Logic podcast.
The reason to not choose despondency
Okay.
is that this is the way this country's going. And you have to figure out a new design for living.
But isn't that then the definition of despondency?
Well, no, because I'm not going to allow myself to wilt. But I have to figure out a way to realize that the mystery is winning. It's yesterday revealed that the mystery is totally upon us. All of those squad members won handily.
Oh, God. Yeah.
The failed academy will continue to be failed. The country has no desire, apparently, given the way it votes, to be energy sustainable. Gas prices are not going to come down. Inflation is not going away anytime soon. Public safety, particularly the closer you get to the country's tallest buildings, is still going to be dangerous. There's really no hope that Minneapolis and St. Paul, given the who we've elected, will suddenly decide. In fact, Keith, you can now go back to being who you really are, somebody who doesn't give a bleep about public safety,
Including the newly elected Mary Moriarty.
Yeah. So
which she was spouting off all the buzzwords.
So what we have to do is figure out a way to live in such a way that we accommodate this, or we are accommodated.
Don't you?
And I'm struggling with that. Although I'm not despondent, I'm a realist, and this isn't going to improve.
But Joe, don't you think that the vast majority of people like us, maybe that don't live in the inner city, have already spoken? When it comes to taking your family to a Twins game or going to a play downtown, people have already spoke. You know, places were closing left and right, and now it's going to get freaking worse.
I think it will get worse, and I don't think that will change anything. This election is so telling, given the travails of the last 2 years, that I don't think the crime problem is not going to change anything. I don't think it'll get better.
No, and think of this. Now that basically the left has its fingerprints on every tentacle of this state, right? Mm-hmm. Who are you going to blame now? Are you going to go back and blame Trump because crime is through the roof again in Minneapolis?
No.
I mean, who are you going to blame?
Well, I blame the voters, which is why I would, and I don't know what I could ever do with it.
I guess I'm saying the likes of Walz, Fry, Carter, Ellison. Who are you going to point the finger at now? You guys run everything.
Well, a guy named Rafael Ortega.
I have that, by the way.
What
if you need
happened
it.
with that race?
Rafael Ortega won District 5, 71% to 29% over Bill
Jesus
Hosko.
Christ. Rafael Ortega is a careerist. He hasn't accomplished anything except bringing about and cheering for more and more public transportation, which is a haven for crime.
79% of the votes. What did he get, about 9, 10?
He's been on the county board, Joe, you said, lifer, since 1994, so almost 30 years.
Wow.
And his latest is he wants to ruin West 7th Street by having some sort of conveyance go down it because
That'll be neat.
apparently he doesn't believe people can get to the airport if they live in St. Paul. So that's his latest deal. Well, he ran against a guy named Bill Hosko, who's a businessman. He owns 2 art galleries. He's a pretty good artist. And he's run before. He's kind of a gadfly. He ran for mayor. But he's terribly invested in the civic well-being of the city as a businessman and what have you. And he wrote a note to his followers that I think tells us a lot. He wrote a note today to the people who might have voted for him. I've voted for him. The majority of those who voted in yesterday's Ramsey County Board District 5 election have chosen to stay on the path where we've been. It's not the one I or many others wanted, but it's where we will stay. The specter of crime and antisocial behavior will continue here, particularly within St. Paul. It's been normalized. Leadership protects and makes excuses for perpetrators over victims. They do not foster personal responsibility, but instead foster victimhood, dependency, and grievance. They are not of the Democratic Party I once knew, but are socialist-minded instead. I could see this coming many years ago, and is why I became a nonpartisan many years ago. Being intellectually weak, they love the power they have to spend large sums of taxpayer money in ways they never would if they were on their own. With regards to climate change, they for a fact do not walk the walk themselves, but instead virtuously wag their fingers at others. With regards to the riots in May 2020, they stood silently by and allowed hundreds of businesses to be attacked for 2 nights. With regards to COVID, they punished small businesses while allowing big businesses to make record profits. So many thousands have been negatively impacted by their incompetence, and so many seriously. We have no strong civic nor media leadership left that will call it out, and they know it. So they become career politicians, rewarding themselves with ever more money. In the end, that's all it is with them. Building dependency, financially rewarding themselves and those they surround themselves with, and working to create a utopian city and county that is not financially viable. And the people who stay here will be called upon to share ever more of their money to keep it going. The comfort of the rich depends upon an abundant supply of the poor. Voltaire, 1715. Yes, we will have some successes, but the overall path here will remain downward with regards to our safety, school system, economy, and regional place of importance. You are expected to applaud their accomplishments and ignore their repeated, predictable, massively costly failings, and more are coming. And you are expected to shun those that don't fall in line. BillHosco.org will remain up for you to see what I had proposed during the campaign and what I may have had to say in the coming months. Perhaps the 28-year incumbent, now making $100,000 annually for a part-time job, who refused to debate me and defend his record publicly, and others in leadership positions will approach me and allow me to help them reverse our course. Perhaps. Each day I look forward to living. Each day is a gift. I am 60 now, and am filled with gratitude for the life I have been able to live. Thank you. Cheers, Bill Hosko. Could that be laid out any better?
No. And
No.
someone who is perfect for office
Put his money where his mouth is.
and got 20% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're at. And that is why I choose to continue to be
Despondent.
He copied this note to the Ramsey County Board, St. Paul Mayor, and City Council print and television media. I'm probably the only media person who will read it.
no
He's
question.
right about the media.
Guaranteed.
No question.
Now, here's why it's going to get worse.
Oh, good.
As rural America continues to be steadfastly conservative, it will become less so. That's inevitable. As the population infused with the products of the failed academy continue to drift away from the big cities and occupy places in smaller areas of the country, the uninformed will continue to grow. And by uninformed, I mean they're uninformed of the issues that severely impact them, which is, again, why I'd love a statistical breakdown on age, family status, transportation status, and property tax status of the people who vote. Because I don't think they have a vested interest.
No skin in the game.
They don't have a vested interest in it. Why they would want civic unwellness is beyond me, because they're the people who populate the urban core. They're the ones who presumably enjoy the nightlife and what have you. And right now, that's not safe. That is absolutely not safe, and it's only going to get worse because you 70% in Hennepin County and you 72% in Ramsey County, you voted for the status quo. You voted for exactly what we've enjoyed the last 2 years, and enjoys the wrong word. You have voted to put back in place the same people who've done nothing about the food fraud scandal. Never said a word about it.
Oh,
And
no,
you're-
That's not true. Governor Walz did say he was shocked when he learned about it.
But, Governor, you appointed the head of the Minnesota Department of Education who oversaw this. And you have no answer for it. You never have. I find him a terribly unimaginative guy.
The Democratic Party, at least I think in this state, and I think this was a strategy utilized in other parts of the country, it worked because all they did was they hid. They didn't debate.
They don't have to do anything.
They don't.
Their foot soldiers have been prepared for them by the failed academy. I think the role.
Let me ask again.
Yeah.
What if the Republicans nominate somebody for governor
Yep.
that you'd have to actually run against? See, I don't.
John,
I'm
could
not
they?
falling in line?
Could they?
Well, I think they could certainly make it closer. Tim Pawlenty was governor for 2 terms.
Yeah, that was what was that was what most recently
06 is-
2006.
06 is when he was.
I don't think a
reelected.
Republican John would have won this year. I don't think Kendall Coles would have won. I think he would have made it closer.
Is there a Republican you could equate right now in Minnesota with Tim Pawlenty? Is that part of the problem? Has the party
Yes, that's part of the
has
problem.
the
I
party
can't
gone
come
nuts?
up with one.
Let me just say, has the party gone nuts?
I think Wilson would
Yes.
have been a good candidate, don't you guys?
Who?
Ryan Wilson.
He was a great candidate
Right.
with a lot of experience.
But I'm saying that I don't think it was as hopeless as you do, John. I think Schultz was a good candidate. I think Wilson was a good
No,
candidate.
I'm talking about governor.
Oh, you're
because
just
Joe was
talking about the
Joe was
governor. I'm
talking
sorry.
about Governor Walz.
I'm
so
sorry. I did. Okay. I misunderstood.
don't think a Republican candidate this year could have won the governor's office.
I disagree.
don't
I think Qualls would have won. I really
I
do.
do not. I do not.
I don't
Really?
think he would have won.
No.
But I think it'd have been closer.
Would have made it closer.
What would they have been able to attack about his background? Nothing. He's a self-made man.
Well, if you go by my theory, they wouldn't have had to worry about attacking him. They're foot soldiers. They're people who have no vested interest in the civic well-being of the city are more numerous than the people who do.
And that's why.
Despondent.
I'm going to convince you that you are in my camp, whether you want to or
Well,
not.
I'm not in your camp. I can't afford to be. It's a crummy way to live.
And that's why I have sympathy for people like you who do live close to the country's tallest buildings that are going to be forced to live with this. I no longer have sympathy for the city. To hell with you. If you people are going to keep reelecting these meatheads, then I have no sympathy for you. None.
Well,
Zero.
but it's a city being run by the people who have no interest in its civic well-being. They're takers. They're not givers. They're not producers. They're takers. And they've got it just the way they want it.
It's a good system. It's big business now.
And that's not just here. That's the closer you get to the country's tallest buildings. We say the left has ruined the real estate closer to the country's tallest buildings, but it's not so much that they've ruined it. They've trained it. They've trained it. I can't come up with a Republican name who could have won a governor's race in this state. I can't come up with one. And those who are trained, they don't have a vested interest in civic well-being. They don't have a vested interest in the economy. They don't have a vested interest in taxation. They have a vested interest in LGBTQ rights. They have a vested interest in abortion. They have a vested interest in getting free stuff. They have a vested interest in, oh, good, another cube of apartments just went up on the light rail line. Mm-hmm. They don't have a vested interest in, what they have a vested interest in is the mystery, which is the creation of a country, we've been saying for a long time, the creation of a country we don't know, understand, or recognize. But we are starting to know it, recognize it, and see it. It's happening before our very eyes. The mystery is winning. And for the remainder of Biden's term, there is no hope for fossil fuel exploration. There is no hope for lower gas prices. There is no hope for inflation to get under control. There is no hope for interest rates. You name it. And the people who voted for these people, they don't have an interest in any of that. There are more of them than there are of us. So it's that simple.
Maybe what the
John, you may counter-argue me any moment.
There are things I agree with you there, and there's things I disagree with. Yeah. I think part of you have to throw the blame. And for instance, you got the note from Rick, I think it was, from Stacy, who talked about the uninformed voting. Yes, both sides. Look at the Republican candidates look at the Lauren Boeberts, who may lose, it looks like. The Marjorie Taylor Greens, that were 50% for Mehmet Oz, despite, not living in the state. The Herschel Walkers, they're not educated voters.
No.
Or if you think they are, then you can't say the Democrats who are voting for the idiots are.
Maybe
either.
what Minnesota should have done was just went all former Viking ticket, huh? Burke, Herschel,
Well, I think
throw
we found
Tommy
out that-
Kramer in there. What the hell? Let's just go all
didn't work.
former
That
Vikings.
didn't work in the governor's race.
Remember the email I read yesterday from the guy who said he developed his thoughts driving truck for 6 hours?
Yes, yeah.
He wrote back, and like many GLers, I stayed up late watching election returns. Midway through the night, it became clear that people are still only voting for the parties of their parents rather than the issues at hand, or better yet, the recent performance of those already in office. You have stated countless times on the podcast and radio that we are poorly led. This statement has been incredibly obvious and frustrating. I began my day yesterday with hope for a better future, where it would be safe to walk the streets of downtown Minneapolis with my wife again. Hope that I wouldn't have to make certain every night that my garage and cars are locked, because daily I receive video from my neighbors of petty thieves checking for unlocked doors, looking for things to steal, criminals who know full well that if they are caught, there is little, if any, punishment. Hope for a new attorney general and governor who would put a stop to lawlessness in our formerly vibrant city, rather than leaders who spend hundreds of millions of our dollars on unneeded light rail transit systems, which in other parts of town have already proven to be failures. However, I awoke today to read the Star Tribune that re-elected Walz will now have influence over how to spend a historic multi-billion-dollar budget surplus. Literally, no one thought at all that the fact is we're overtaxed is the reason there is a surplus to begin with.
Yep.
Joe, I strive to be a glass half full type of person. I really do. But when I look at the choices that my neighbors have made at the ballot box, it is hard to stay positive. I believe I may finally have lost hope. Our city literally burned under Walz and Ellison, and yet my neighbors reelected them. Hello? Lawlessness is literally in our streets, and yet my fellow citizens are either too busy watching Netflix or simply don't care enough to notice. Joe, I will do my best to get it together, but after this election, I may well have lost hope. Unlike the Hollywood types threatening to move to Canada, I will be listening to the pod from Florida, Wyoming, or South Dakota in the future. It doesn't make sense to swim against the tide for the rest of my time on Earth. I love Minnesota, and despite the insanely high taxes, fifth highest in the country. It's been a wonderful place to live. That said, it seems to be headed in the direction of Chicago and Seattle, and I will not reside in a place that legitimizes lunacy over logic. I'll keep pushing back, but not sure what good it will do. Somber regards, Scott from Edina.
Scott, you're welcome on the Reavers Road to Hell.
Despondent.
Isn't that sobering? Isn't that sobering?
Dispute anything he just said, because you can't.
I would leave too. I would leave too, but I am not in a position to.
What'd you say, Johnny? Sorry, I interrupted.
Here's the other thing that bugs me about political discussions. Can't you have an a la carte view on issues? Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Is the right going to be this line of things you have to agree with? Is the left going to be this line of things you have to agree
You're
with?
right.
Because we're talking about issues here. Some of them I think are fine. Others I think are awful. So I think that's part of the issue right now going on in the U.S. And I think young people look at it that way too. From the young people I know,
It's the you're either with us or you're against us mentality.
and if you are with us, then on this issue, here's what you think.
And that's why when it comes to voting on large spending bills, you get it cut right down the middle.
Yeah, and that's I think why a lot of young people don't vote the way everybody wants them to, because a lot of social issues they're very liberal on. Other issues they're conservative on.
Speaking about poor
But
leadership.
those candidates don't exist for them.
Yes.
That's true. So they have to, yes, and they have to pick and choose and say, in this instance, from the polling, it sounds like if abortion's the most important issue to them, guess how they're going to vote.
Yep.
Even if they are conservative fiscally, if they're conservative in other ways,
That's right.
they're going to vote for that abortion issue.
And when they do, they're not going to get a fiscally conservative candidate.
Nope.
Correct. Well, and vice versa.
Right.
If they're fiscally conservative, that's their number one item. But they are pro-choice, they're not going to get a
Right,
pro-choice.
exactly.
No.
Jennifer writes, Reavers, I know this is a couple of days old, but figured you could use it on today's podcast in terms of poor leadership. I know this is a couple of days old, but I thought Joe would get a kick out of President Biden speaking at a rally over the weekend.
No one's ever reduced the debt that much. We cut the federal debt in half.
Really?
Fact check.
Walter Mitty strikes again.
The U.S. national debt was $27.7 trillion on the day that Joe Biden took office. The debt that day was $31.2 trillion. I don't think that's half of 27.7. Hold on, I got you. I got you right here.
Cut the debt in half.
Despondent.
Yeah, I think he meant deficit. Remember we had
I think
this
he meant
argument
deficit,
before?
but the deficit has not been cut in half.
Not half, by 1.5 trillion. The Biden administration has cut but we remember we had this discussion a couple of years ago. We all got very confused.
But I have
deficit,
no
debt.
hope for this country returning to civic, law-abiding structures. I have no hope for this country.
Yeah,
I have
don't
no
know
hope
that
for
I
this
agree.
country getting a handle on its insatiable spending of money.
yeah.
I have no hope whatsoever.
What would be
None.
a good nickname for my new team, the Despondent, the Desperado? What should we be? The Despondent.
The despondents.
The Despondents. I like that.
Respondents.
You know, I'm glad the center of the American experiment is back with us because let them worry about this.
Right, to hell with it.
You know what? That's what they do. Right now, they're going to unveil their 2022 Golden Turkey Awards. They give an award. You can vote on it. You go to
Nah,
AmericanExperiment.org.
didn't work out well for me yesterday.
Well, they keep track. Among the many, many things they keep track of is just the foolish way Minnesota spends money. And their first Golden Turkey nominee, of course, is the $250 million food fraud, grants for self-love strippers and dancing in the dark, $1.3 million to pay kids to go outside. That's a DNR program. $20,000 to promote outrageous home remedies for COVID-19. I find that particularly onerous because we were told by our authorities in power that there was no home remedy for COVID. Get in line, wear your mask, and get a shot. But we gave $20,000. Who did we give the $20,000 to? I might have to vote for that. It's a grant to the Department of Health to come up with, new herbs and rose petals and crushed butterfly wings or something to come up for COVID-19 remedies. The center of the American experiment was the foremost pushbacker in this state, and they remain pushing back. They got a great newsletter, great emails. They stage events. They bring speakers to town. They have a great magazine. I am very, very happy that they're back with us because you know what, boys? Let them worry about it.
Sure.
They're going to get to the bottom of
That's
it
their
faster
job.
than I can, right? It's a center of the American experiment, and the website, which is fascinating, is americanexperiment.org.
Seafoamworks.com is an excellent source on the proper use of all the Seafoam products. They also have some really good advice on their website on reviving bad-running small engines. Now, if you don't know how, it's really nothing to fear. It's pretty easy to learn. Basically, throw in a new plug, new air cleaner, clean that carb out. A blast of top engine cleaner from Seafoam will do that. Clean out that gas tank. That means drain it. And then use fresh gas with a gulp of Seafoam motor treatment. The motor treatment can also be used to stabilize your fuel for up to 2 years. You hear us talking about that all the time on GL, making it ideal for storing your seasonal stuff. And everything it does for small engines, it's also going to do for your automobile, truck, tractor, and everything else, both gas and diesel powered. It's great preventive medicine. And it's great for reviving engines and trannies, too, for that matter, with Seafoam Tranny Tune. You got to check out this website. Pop around on it. Check it out, seafoamworks.com. And you can buy the stuff almost anywhere. That's what I love about them. Our local company with a global reach and a true miracle in a world of bad gas, Seafoam.
We'd
Here's
like
a
to
man
do
who spends hours in hardware stores, sifting through the nuts and bolts of life. Joe Souchere.
Yes, John.
we'd like to do a little a song for the despondent people out there.
Thank you.
All right, here we go. That's funereal. That's fantastic.
There you go.
Here's John Hyde in his newsroom.
I wanted the music to fit Chris's mood.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
What are you worried about? You live in the middle of nowhere. You don't have to put up with any of this BS.
When's the last time you went grocery shopping? When's the last time you filled up your car? When's the last time you paid your heating bill?
I do that. I do those things.
That's why I'm despondent.
All right.
Well, this news is brought to you by the Rivertown Medical Center in Stillwater. They specialize in regenerative medicine and regenerative cell therapy. And as Dr. Dan there likes to say, they're Stillwater's best kept secret. If you have the pain, the tingling in your hands and feet, the numbness that is caused by neuropathy, if it brings to you, you know the suffering that can cause. And your doctor may have told you there's nothing you can do about it.
What if your toes just hurt? They don't tingle and they're not numb. They just hurt.
I don't think that's neuropathy. Or could you know what? I'm not Dr. Dan.
No, you're not.
I think you need new shoes.
Dr. Dan about that. And if you have questions like that, like Joe does,
I should ask him.
Well, this weekend, why don't you come up and visit me? Because sort of in my area here, they're going to have a free seminar, the Rivertown Medical Center. They'll be doing that seminar at the Best Western Plus at 10580 Baltimore Street Northeast in Blaine. To get in, it's free, remember. You'll also get, by the way, a free neuropathy scan.
All right.
Come there. Call 651-661-4311. You just leave your name and cell number. You'll automatically get the text reservation for the seminar. You're also welcome to bring a friend this weekend. It is this Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, Best Western Plus, 10580 Baltimore Street Northeast in Blaine. Rivertown Medical Center in Stillwater, bringing you relief from the pain and numbness of peripheral neuropathy.
We were talking in the previous segment about Joe Biden cutting the federal deficit in half, which is we don't know that.
No, the debt, he said, not the deficit. See, you're confusing them again, like we did 2 years ago.
Joe just sends an email because he's a member of the Garage Logic Town Council. Thank you very much, Joe. Guys, the deficit is the amount of money the government is currently spending over the amount it is bringing in. When Papa Joe took over as president, there was a reduced tax revenue due to everything being closed and people being out of work. We were spending like crazy on things like PPE loans and other pandemic-related spending, including food fraud. So basically, both ends of the equation were artificially expanded. We had less coming in and we had more going out. As some normality has been restored, it has only been natural that the deficit has reduced. There we go. Thank you very much, Joe.
In the news, as you probably have figured out, will be mostly about the election and the results. Here's everything. We've talked about some of this, but I'll give you all the details. In Minnesota, Governor Tim Walz beat challenger Scott Jensen 52-44. In that very closely watched Attorney General's race, it was very, very close, but incumbent Keith Ellison eked out a win by a little more than 20,000 votes over Jim Schultz. The percentages there worked out to 50.37% for Ellison and 49.53% for Schultz. Incumbent Secretary of State Steve Simon defeated challenger Kim Crockett by 9 percentage points. In the auditor's race, very close again, incumbent Julie Blaha, though winning by only a little more than 8,000 votes in that one. In U.S. House races in Minnesota, incumbents on both sides did well. Angie Craig defeating Tyler Kistner for the second straight election in District 2. That race closely watched nationally as Republicans thought they might have a chance to win that one. Dean Phillips wins easily in District 3. In District 4, Betty McCollum won by 35 percentage points. In District 5, after almost losing her primary battle, Ilhan Omar got 75% of the vote to win. And I believe you said earlier, Joe, that was the biggest margin of victory in the United States, right?
And how has the city improved under her tutelage?
Joe, she's fighting for us.
And God love Betty McCollum, but how has Ramsey County improved under her tenure?
The watch party, scene, so they'd have a reporter at this particular establishment and that particular establishment.
Yeah.
I had to laugh. I was watching a local news outlet that was at the Angie Craig watch party, and the reporter said, yeah, she was, this was about 10 o'clock, and she says, yeah, she was here, said hi, and then I think she left.
In the 6th District, Republican Tom Emmer easily winning over Gene Hendricks. In District 7, Michelle Fischbach easily winning re-election. Same for Pete Stauber in District 8. In District 1, Brad Finstad, the Republican who had been filling out a 2-year term that he won in a special election following the death of Representative Jim Hagedorn, won that spot. Meanwhile, Democrats have taken control of both chambers of the Minnesota legislature, putting that party in full control of the state government for the first time since 2014.
How about this email from Brian? Reeves, as Joe says, we will continue to wish for the previous mayor, governor, city council member, etc. We will one day wish for King Walls back when Keith Ellison is our governor. As you like to say, oh, dear God.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that's going to make...
That's where he's headed.
Brian, why did you do that to me? I'm already... I think I've made it very, very clear that I'm already extremely...
despondent.
John, continue.
Other local elections that were of note, Mary Moriarty defeated Martha Holton Dimmick easily in the race for Hennepin County Attorney.
Good luck, Minneapolis.
Dewana Witt will be the new Hennepin County Sheriff, defeating challenger Joseph Banks by a 2-1 margin. In Anoka County, Brad Wise defeated Paul Lensmeyer in the race for Anoka County Sheriff, receiving a little less than 4,000 votes than Lensmeyer. Nationally, a mixed bag. Republicans did make some small gains, but Democrats appear to have staved off that Republican red wave that many had predicted could happen. And actually, there's still a lot of races still too close to call as of mid-morning today. It looks like the GOP will come away with a 1 or 2 person edge in the U.S. House. They had expected to gain about 10 or 12 seats. The Senate pretty much a dead heat still, with several elections yet to be called off, and one that is headed to a runoff officially now. That one is in Georgia. If either candidate had surpassed the 50% threshold, Democratic incumbent Ralph Warnock or Republican Herschel Walker, they would have been the winner. But with nobody hitting the 50% threshold, they will now proceed to a December 6th runoff. As of this morning, Warnock led 49.4 to 48.5%, a margin of about 35,000 votes. The Democrats took over a former Republican seat in Pennsylvania, where John Fetterman won a close race with TV Dr. Mehmet Oz. As of mid-morning, Arizona's race was leaning toward the Democrats. Nevada and Wisconsin races are toss-ups. That race in Wisconsin now has been called in the last hour, Republican Ron Johnson being named the winner with a slim lead over the lieutenant governor of the state, Mandela Barnes. In the U.S. House, a surprisingly close race in Colorado finds Republican Lauren Boebert in a battle for the spot she currently holds. It wasn't expected to be close, but with the latest counting of votes, she is actually down 4,000 votes to Tony Frisch. Still too close to call in that one.
You know, this Mehmet Oz might be the most miserable failure of all of the national candidates.
That's saying something.
He lost to a stroke victim who can't communicate. What does that say? He was a bad candidate.
You know, I was thinking about this earlier.
Was he endorsed by the psychopathic sociopath? Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, he was. And I think that's part of the problem. Is I think there's just obviously a large percentage that aren't going to vote for a Republican candidate just because they're a Republican candidate, Joe. And that played out here.
In governor's races, Republican Ron DeSantis easily defeating Charlie Crist in Florida. And as you said earlier, Joe, it would seem to indicate, that the Republican Party may want to make a move from where they're at now.
What if so many people move to Florida that it tips over?
Oh, like Guam.
Yeah, it could flip.
That's a good point.
It could capsize. No, it's a peninsula. It's not an island. Never mind.
In Arizona, Carrie Lake, who ran on a platform that the 2020 elections were rigged and says she'll make media members' lives living hell, slightly behind with around 70% of the vote in. She trails Democrat Katie Hobbs by about 12,000
Is this for the
votes. That
governor's
one-
race, John?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
That one's still too close to call. Also, Brian Kemp, a Republican whom former President Trump went after when Kemp wouldn't cooperate when Trump wanted vote totals added to his number in Georgia, handily won, defeating Stacey Abrams for the governorship there.
Thank God.
Gretchen Whitmer, Big Gretch, as Kenny likes to call her, easily winning the Michigan governorship again. In Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro easily defeated the Trump-backed candidate Doug Mastriano, 55 to 42%. Incumbent Greg Abbott wins in Texas, beating Beto O'Rourke by 11 points. And Tony Evers reelected easily in Wisconsin. In other neighboring states, Chris Reaver's girlfriend won. Governor Kristi Noem defeating a Democrat. There, see? Take care of your despondency there. Defeating a Democratic state lawmaker to win re-election.
I wonder if we can get her to
leaning
move here and run for governor.
She
heavily
wouldn't
on her-
win.
I know she wouldn't win.
Yeah. Leaning heavily on her handling of the coronavirus pandemic. The Republican governor eased past state rep Jamie Smith after raising more than $15 million via nationwide fundraising network. She has said she would serve out her full year term, although there is speculation she may try and make a run at the presidency in 2024.
Who, Noam?
Yeah.
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 In North Dakota, U.S. Representative Kelly Armstrong won re-election, beating former Miss America Kara Mund. That was kind of a weird race. Miss America was she was an independent, and the Democrat Mark Haugen dropped out of the race, being urged by his party to drop out to give Mund a chance. It didn't do any good. Armstrong's been there a few years. He won easily. He's an establishment Republican with ties to the state's dominant industry, oil, and a lawyer and former state senator. He's been a strong supporter of former President Trump. Mund said she didn't know if she would seek office again.
Was she a looker? Was she a
front,
good-looking Miss Universe?
I would assume so.
Miss America, or whatever the hell she was?
Miss America, yeah.
Kelsey has a great email. All you need to know about how unserious and stupid Minnesotans are is the fact that in the Angie Craig Tyler Kistner race, a dead transgender member of the legalized marijuana party received 10,730 votes.
I meant to mention that. We had 10,000 people in the 2nd District voted for a dead guy.
A dead
gal.
Wow.
Well, whatever it is.
Sorry. Well, gal.
Yeah, is it a guy became a gal
Don't know.
and died, unfortunately, and 10,000 people voted for it. So tell me you're informed.
On the issue front, Eden Prairie Schools got a bump in funding, and the Chisholm and Cass Lake Bena, right? Districts will see new elementary schools after voters on Tuesday backed a majority of school spending measures on state ballots. Hawley also secured approval for a new $53 million middle school. Overall, statewide, the election proved a good night for districts. Yes, Chris?
Howley, Minnesota got
Hawley, Minnesota.
that. There's 5 people that live there.
You got to get a new school.
$50 million for a school?
And it'd be a nice one.
53.
It'll be a nice
one.
school.
Wow. Well, thank God we reelected that state auditor.
That's right.
Voters in Chisago Lake soundly rejected requests for additional operating and facilities improvements funding, and the North St. Paul Maplewood Oakdale District lost a bid to dedicate $3 million per year to technology needs.
I apologize. There are 2,400 people that live in Hawley, Minnesota.
That's a big town.
Abortion rights supporters won in the 4 states where access was on the ballot yesterday as voters enshrined it into state constitutions in Michigan, as well as blue California and Vermont, and dealt a defeat to an anti-abortion measure in deep red Kentucky. The Kentucky result repudiated the state's Republican-led legislature, which has imposed a near-total ban on abortion and put the proposed state constitutional amendment on the ballot. The outcome echoed what happened in another red state earlier back in August, Kansas, where voters rejected changing that state's constitution to let lawmakers tighten restrictions or ban abortions. Legalization of recreational marijuana was on the ballot in 5 states. It passed in Maryland and Missouri. It was defeated in North and South Dakota and in Arkansas.
GL or Jeremy Munson, who I believe has a political background, had a great tweet. Minnesota is now the new California for those that like bad weather. That's spot on.
You'll get their car rules now with this group.
What's that?
You'll get their car rules. You'll get California's car rules with this group.
2030, we got to get rid of them, right?
The only other notable national one I just saw across was Sarah Palin soundly defeated in Alaska.
Really?
Getting only got 26% of the vote there.
Wow.
So
What was she running for?
she was running for the Senate.
Was she facing an incumbent?
She was not.
Uh-huh.
She was facing the woman's name was Meltona. I don't know her first.
Huh.
Her first name. In other news, Facebook parent Meta is laying off 11,000 people, about 13% of its workforce, as it contends with faltering revenue and broader tech industry woes. That, according to CEO Mark Zuckerberg in a letter to employees this morning. The job cuts come just a week after widespread layoffs at Twitter under its new owner, billionaire Elon Musk. There have been numerous job cuts at other tech companies that hired rapidly during the pandemic. Zuckerberg as well said that he had made the decision to hire aggressively, anticipating rapid growth even after the pandemic ended. Like other social media companies, Meta enjoyed a financial boost during the pandemic lockdown era because more people stayed home and scrolled on their phones and computers. But as the lockdowns ended, people started going outside again. Revenue growth began to falter. Speaking of Elon Musk, by the way, he's considering now implementing a paywall on Twitter as a way to generate revenue after several corporations.
What would that
paused
mean?
there.
Well,
Means
that
you'd have to
it'd be a
pay.
subscription-based service. But how come we're not losing our minds over Zuckerberg laying off 13% of his workforce like we did with Elon laying off a larger percentage, I'll grant you. But how come we're not losing it? Oh, it's because he's a lefty. That's
It's a
right.
lefty.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't think Zuckerberg's a lefty. He's a
Are you
goofball.
out of your mind? He is absolutely a lefty, John.
Well, he's wealthy enough to be a lefty.
He's wealthy enough to be both, I think, is
Yeah.
the thing. Yeah.
Oh.
So.
John, forgive me if you had this in your news. I don't think you did because I was listening to some audio. But in the great state of Pennsylvania, a deceased Democrat official won re-election in Pennsylvania yesterday.
Nice.
Democrat Tony DeLuca was the longest-serving member of the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives, serving for nearly 40 years. Well, Joe, he died a month ago at 85 after battling lymphoma.
Yeah.
But that didn't stop voters from re-electing him.
No, we got a dead guy in Minnesota that got 10,000 votes.
But he won.
Yeah.
You know, this is a whole nother thing with maybe term limits, because should guys like Chuck Grassley be reelected for 6 years when they're 89?
No.
And I'm not picking on Chuck because he's Chuck, but just because he's 89. You know what I
I
mean?
got a new theory about term limits.
What's that?
What's that?
Just the people we've just elected, they're it forever. No more elections.
Oh, there you go.
And as they begin to destroy themselves, maybe they'll come to their senses.
Good luck with that
No,
state
yeah.
and
It's not a
St.
very
Paul.
good theory, is there?
You know there's nothing in that theory I agree with.
No, that's a pretty bad one.
Joe, in fact, DeLuca dominated his challenger, Quinona Livingston of the Green Party, by more than 70 points.
Hell, I would have voted for him if it
With
was going up against the Green Party.
95% of the vote counted, he won with 86% of the vote compared to Livingston's 14.
People really aren't informed, are they? I'm sure it made the news that he died.
Despite his death,
yeah,
election
it had
officials were not able to remove DeLuca's name from the ballot in time for Election Day. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette reported Democrats celebrated the victory as one that honors his legacy.
Wow.
God almighty.
America!
It's a great country.
You know what they are, I bet, in the great state of Pennsylvania right now?
I don't know.
I think they might be.
Despondent.
No, they voted. They got their guy Fetterman in. They got the dead guy in.
Hold on, he's dead. What the hell? Put him in.
Put him in. It's a testament to our party.
I wonder what they have to do now.
Wouldn't they just appoint somebody
Maybe
from
that Green Conoro person will get it.
Queenora?
Queenie.
I can't believe this.
This seems like a pretty big oops that you probably shouldn't make unless you're sure about it. The Jeffrey Epstein victim, Virginia Giuffre, and she was, by her testimony, not treated well, and by other people's testimony, but she admitted she may have been wrong to accuse Alan Dershowitz of sexually abusing her as a teenager.
Made a little mistake there.
Yeah, she dropped her defamation lawsuit against the high-profile lawyer. According to a joint statement announcing the dismissal given to the insider folks by one of Giuffre's lawyers, she said she may have made a mistake in identifying Dershowitz as one of the men Epstein trafficked her to as a teen. I was very young at the time. It was very stressful and traumatic. This litigation has been very stressful and burdensome for me and my family. We believe it's time to bring it to an end and move on with our lives.
Is that one of those deals where they had to identify body parts and he had the, the bad deal?
No,
and she said,
no.
"Oh, that's not him. This guy had a bent tie rod."
Moving right along, sad news from the Como Zoo.
Which
Como
animal
Park-
died?
Well, the 3-year-old gray seal, Stanley.
No, that's a shame.
sad.
Stanley.
According to the zoo, Stanley went into surgery for conjunctival grafts on his eyes.
Oh, boy.
The surgery was successful, but Stanley went into a dive response that included a slowing of the heart rate.
No.
Statement from the zoo said, despite all efforts, Stanley never woke up from surgery. The team is heartbroken, and Stanley will be greatly missed.
That's a shame.
That story led me to singing Elton John's song "Gray Seal" for about an hour around my house.
Is Sparky still alive from when I was a
I
kid?
think we have a new Sparky.
Maybe there's
I
a
think
couple new ones.
Yeah, there's a Sparky every time one goes away.
Yeah.
And if you you're despondent like Chris is about the election, whatever side you're on, maybe you had a winner or loser you didn't like. Here's some news. The Houston Astros 6-game victory over the Phillies finished as the second least watched World Series in the history of the World Series on television.
Wow.
Here's why I'm not despondent about that. And I've shared this with you guys a number of times. I hate the modern game. I still love baseball. I hate the modern game. It's boring.
What are some of the shows that beat it?
The Masked Singer.
It probably still did well, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
It's probably
So you don't have the shows above it.
Well, Fox does.
I just have the numbers of the watch.
It has to, because Fox still puts it in prime time.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure they averaged over 11 million.
Because
a game.
unless it's on a
So-
weekend, I know the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals aren't in prime time unless it's a Saturday or Sunday game.
Just football.
Just football. That's Sunday, bro.
6 games averaged 11,784,000 people.
No, 11 million.
11 million. What did I say? 11,000. Jeez, that would be really.
That'd be low, wouldn't it? That'd be lower than we get.
Yeah.
All I got.
Now there was not to confuse the issue, but there's also over 12 million streaming the games. But
Yeah, that does confuse the issue. I don't want to
I
hear
suppose
about
that, and I suppose it cuts into what you're talking about because
it. Johnny, thank you.
We elected
you're
a
welcome.
dead guy in Pennsylvania.
Say Eckberg Lammers law firm.
Yeah.
See, you don't want to fool around with electing dead people.
If you're despondent, give the lamb a call.
No, if you're going to die someday, and you can't do anything about that, and you want to create an estate plan. That's a bad ad today, isn't it? Everybody's dying and they're voting for dead people. And I wonder if that dead guy had an estate plan. Tony Gaboni or whatever his name was in Philadelphia.
Wow.
Eckberg Lammers has been creating estate plans and wills for more than 70 years. They take care of family problems. You're trying to sell the cabin. You got divorces and marriages and kids and what have you. You have an estate. No matter how big or small the estate, you don't want your estate to fall into the hands of the government authorities upon your death. You want your family to take over a real smooth operation. If you don't think you need one, think again. If you don't have a plan in place for your family, the courts will decide that. You don't want that to happen. The estate planning team at Eckberg Lammers can help you make sure your estate will transition smoothly the way you want. And then all the people you leave behind will say, the old guy took care of this all right. Mm-hmm. We don't have to worry about it. Make an appointment with Eckberg Lammers and take care of this. I don't care how old you are. Take care of it. It's terribly important. Call Eckberg Lammers at 651-439-2878 or visit eckberglammers.com/will.
Truth, justice, and the Soucheray.
That was it, huh?
Well, you've only heard it 15,000 times. What? Huh?
Just follow that, baby. You know, in these despondent times, Joe,
Thank you, boys.
who are you going to call?
Fetterman.
Ghostbusters?
Slush Buster.
That's what I meant.
Garage Logic would like to welcome a new partner to the show, and it's our friends at Slush Buster. You see, the Slush Buster was invented by Dave Pounds right here in Burnsville, Minnesota. Dave got tired of all the corrosive slush that was rusting his cars and damaging his garage floor, and the broomstick and boot that was used to remove the slush just wasn't cutting it anymore. And you saw my Slush Buster when you brought it in for me the other day.
It looks like it would work.
So here's the deal. The Slush Buster is designed and assembled right here in Rogers, Minnesota. It's the only device in the market that is specially designed to remove that slush. It will greatly reduce the slush that damages your vehicle and your garage floor. And it can also reduce ice formation that can cause slips and falls that can injure you and your family. GLers, we know you take good care of your vehicles and your garage, and the Slush Buster is going to help you out with both. Invented in Minnesota by our friend Dave, show him some support and order a Slush Buster today. You can learn more and order yours at slushbuster.us. That's slushbuster.us.
You might need one by this weekend.
No kidding. So here's what was really cool about this. David and his lovely wife came in.
I met him, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Dave's a huge car guy, by the way, as you learned. So they were in here. We were chatting, and it was before Mike and I were going to do the weekly scramble, and we had said, "Well, what outlets are you in?" And we were striking up conversation, and Mike, here's how cool Fratelloni is. Mike's in the other room, and he goes, "Well, send a couple to each one of my stores." And Dave goes, "Really?" I go, "Well, that was easy. Here we go."
That was easy.
Just if you want to check it out, just go to any one of the Fratelloni's locations and you can find a Slush Buster right there. But again, slushbuster.us. If you do place an order online, please tell them you heard it over here on the Garage Logic podcast.
Stacy, the GL geologist, offers a series of 3 earthquakes near Fiji.
Why not?
Magnitude 6.8, 7, and 6.6. No tsunami warnings have been issued. She also noted, mother is rumbling off the coast of Italy. Reports of minor damage, but no injuries noted, with a 5.6er off the coast of central Italy. I don't know what side of the country that would be on, but we've got some rumbling taking place. And only because they come to us all the way from Marloth Park in Mpumalanga, South Africa, from the Traveling Linemans. I said yesterday, that's where I wish I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the Traveling Lineman's note on yesterday's podcast, you said a place I wish I was right now. Well, the vacation house we're renting has 2 separate guest houses. We can accommodate 6 guests. You and the CP or the crew and their significant others are more than welcome to come and stay at no cost or rent. You could even do the podcast from here with live videos of the visiting wildlife. Can you imagine the fun conversation at sundowner time, happy hour on the veranda? Yeah, I don't know if the CP would really want to go to Africa.
You don't think so?
You know what? I'm going to go on a pretty sturdy limb and say I don't think that's likely.
That would be a lovely
Wouldn't that be
plane
neat?
ride for the two of you.
Be a long one, wouldn't
Think
it?
of all the conversation you could strike up, especially post-election, huh?
On this day in 1862,
Joe, today is 11/9/20.
in the aftermath of the U.S.-Dakota War, a mob of settler colonists attacked a group of Dakota captives in New Ulm. The troops guarding the captives managed to restore order. 5 days later in Henderson, settler colonists attacked Dakota captives being marched to Fort Snelling. They killed a Dakota infant before soldiers dispersed the crowd. On this day in 1891, George A. Hormel launched his packing house in Austin, operating out of an old creamery. Did you know that?
I did not.
On this day in 1913, day 2 of the 3-day Great Storm of 1913, which killed 251 people on the Great Lakes, 44 on Lake Superior, and sunk 17 boats. So you only get bad weather now, though. But if we just pay the UN, we can fix that.
Or have a local tax. Well, fortunately, that's coming with the newly elected
we're going green, yeah. On this day in 1940, 2 members of Alcoholics Anonymous visited Minnesota to watch a football game and to contact people who had asked for help with their drinking problems. They connect with one B. Patrick Cronin, who would date his sobriety to November 11th, 1940, and eventually help start more than 450 AA groups in the Midwest.
Wow.
Fantastic.
That's pretty good, huh?
A lot of groups.
Well, GLers, you can be despondent like Reavers, or like me, we can search for a new way to live, because it's got to be one of the two. Thank you.
How about a quote from Thomas Sowell before we go?
All right.
Democrats could sell refrigerators to Eskimos before Republicans could sell them blankets.
That's right. He is right.
Despondency. Go
we
ahead,
were
John.
talking about Slush Buster there.
Yes,
Chris.
sir. Yes.
You know where they need that today?
Where?
My brother informed me of their forecast, so I looked it up. In Bismarck today, blizzard warning, 8 to 12 inches of snow.
You're kidding.
No.
Really,
Oh,
John?
wow.
Whoa.
Potential for blizzard. Right now, it's 17 degrees there. Blizzard conditions, 8 to 12 inches of snow.
Oh, my word.
You know, I could hunker
Yep.
down right now for about a 2-week run. What the hell?
Yeah.
All's I got
All I got.
is that podcast. GLers, do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button on the old Garage Logic YouTube page if you wouldn't mind. And you can follow us on all of our social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you haven't done so yet and have been thinking about it, join the Garage Logic Town Council, because there you are going to get 24/7 access to all sorts of behind-the-scenes footage and also previous segments from years ago. It's all available to you for just $10 a month and $100 a year. Learn more and sign up at garagelogic.com, and hang in there.